Hi, I'm Marianne Chester, and I'm here today with a very special guest, one of our clients who has done well since working with us. I want to introduce you to Heidi Ferrari and take you through her journey step by step and the obstacles she had to overcome. So, Heidi, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I am the executive director of a local nonprofit. I have been the executive director since 2015. Prior to that, I had worked as an administrative assistant in the office, which had been great. I was doing that while I was completing my degree in applied psychology with an emphasis in gerontology. And while I was there as the admin assistant, it gave me an opportunity to learn the systems in place and to analyze those systems in place. And from my prior business and legal background, I thought there are some issues here that I would love to have an opportunity to resolve. And when I learned that the job for the executive director was up, I was really excited to plan what I could see as a vision for this agency and the ideas I had to implement growth. And during my interview, that's what I did. I basically did a presentation of this is what I think, here's where we are, here's where I think we can go. And that was successful. And I was hired as the executive director.
Awesome. So, what were you think the big problems were, or what were you trying to achieve?
Well, the organization had been pretty stagnant for some time. When I first started there, I was a little startled at the low number of clients we were actually serving in comparison to the population in our community. And so I felt that there had been a lack of vision. There had definitely been an aversion to change, and there were a lot of operational inefficiencies. So it just seemed really, really stagnant. And the board at the time and the staff and the executive director seemed to be okay with this. There were never any discussions about where they could go. And I think part of that was a fear of lack of capacity.
And maybe even a little bit of, a fear of change, perhaps.
Oh, definitely, definitely. That was a big issue for us.
So when you were facing these problems, what did life look like for you, and what did business look like before you started working with us?
Well, I know that there was constantly discussion about, oh, we can't take on more clients. We don't have the capacity to serve these clients. And from my perspective, I thought, no, these are self-imposed capacity restraints. And that's because, first off, they didn't have a strategic plan that made any sense. When I looked at the strategic plan, it was about 2 inches of documents, completely unreadable. There was no action plan in this strategic plan. It was just discussing, where they were and some very vague suggestions of what they could do to grow the organization. The other issue we had is we had staff with limited skills, and they also had an aversion to change. For instance, we have a particular piece of software we use, and when they changed from one version to another brand software, the one individual that was in charge of the software was actually running both programs at the same time. Like, she just couldn't let go of the old version. So there was a lot of duplicate work. There was a lot of anxiety about cleaning up the office, both with paperwork and useless items. It seems, kind of a small thing, but it's actually a huge thing in terms of being efficient and being able to put your hands on things that you need. And I have to say the financial resources were not an issue. The prior executive director and the board had been very fiscally responsible. And actually that was great for me because it laid the groundwork for me to come in and say, okay, this is what I'd like to do. And I know we have the resources to do it.
Awesome. So why did you call us? Why did you call MES?
Well, I thought initially maybe we could do this internally. But I didn't feel maybe that the board had exactly the experience of doing a strategic plan in the way that I thought made sense. And I was concerned that I would not get consensus from the board on priorities, and that we would just get stuck in the planning with no roadmap for action. So I thought, if we bring out an outside individual, that's going to help, and the board might be more, accepting of the suggestions. I wanted the board too to understand their role in achieving the vision I had. I wanted to expand client enrollment. I wanted to find innovative solutions to service delivery, particularly because at one point we had 60 people on a waiting list, which I found incredibly unacceptable. I wanted to expand what we did, and I also wanted to improve our fundraising efforts. They had tried prior consultants from a local university, and I think that only provided minimal success for them. So I had actually reached out to a mutual acquaintance, and they recommended you, Marianne. And so I know that with our initial conversation, it included questions. Our discussions showed that you really understood, what my vision was, and that and you understood the roadblocks I was facing. And I thought that your manner and approach would be accepted by my board, and you would help motivate the board to work on this project with us.
So really, one of the things I'm hearing is you didn't necessarily need to do a strategic plan because you really already had the vision in your head, right? It was really more about using strategic planning as a way of creating an execution roadmap so that you would be able to execute the vision that you had, and a way of getting the buy-in from the various parties.
Exactly. And I think the board now looks at it as a way to, hold me accountable. It's not just in my head, me checking the boxes off in my head. We actually have, a spreadsheet that explains what our vision is for the next 3 years. And then we have a way of going back and saying, okay, did we achieve these things? If we didn't, what were the issues? And it helps that it's not just me doing it, right? That's part of what the board is there, is to provide me some guidance. So that's been a great way to engage the board.
So what do you think would have happened if you had not done this work?
Well, I can tell you during COVID, we would have completely shut down. There was no way, with the way we were running before we had done the strategic plan, that we could have continued running our program. And so that was sort of interesting to me, that doing all of those different things had really laid the groundwork for us to continue to stay open during COVID, and we never had to shut down. I think also that during COVID, the need in our community rose tremendously. Yeah. And if we had been where we were before, we would have definitely had a lack of capacity to serve the greater need in our community. I think too that, setting COVID aside, I think I would have been able to implement some of my vision, but not to the same degree, because there would have been a lack of alignment with the board and staff with my plan, understanding the priorities and understanding the next steps. And I would not have been able to set up the foundation for sustainability without doing the strategic plan and resulting execution. And I want to go back briefly to the staff who have this aversion of change. When you have this plan and they can see where you're headed and see what their role is in achieving this, even the one employee who really had her feet planted firmly, I am not going to change. She has done a tremendous job of doing, executing her role in achieving this plan.
Awesome. Love to hear that. So tell us a little bit about the process of working with us.
Well, initially we had a number of phone calls. You had to get to know me. I had to get to know you. And then you discussed what the process was going to be. And this was very different. I had gotten my business management degree in 1990, and I can tell you strategic planning from that era is very different. That 2-inch document that our agency had, that was the way things were done when I went to business school. So I loved that the process was simple and focused on, what needed to be get done. Then you and I talked about how to align all the priorities and how we were going to engage the staff and the board in this process. And then after that, we had several, small little board retreats that you facilitated, and you helped with discussions and different alignment exercises. And you could see the board enthusiasm in participating, which was great. So through that process, we created a 1 and 2 and 3 year roadmap with metrics and a dashboard that I could use to track the results. And now, of course, I'm continuing to use that same framework as we move forward each year. And I felt like you had a really great rapport with our board. You had your enthusiasm really helped to inspire the alignment that was needed to get them to think about strategic thinking in the first place. And you had a way of turning my thoughts into the actions that needed to be done. You were really good at guiding the board members through an unfamiliar process, and what could potentially have been a very difficult process if you're not accustomed to it. And you helped achieve consensus. So I just thought it was one of the most useful exercises I had done with my board. I had done some of these before, little short 2-hour sessions, and I never felt that anything productive actually came out of this. And I feel like now this is really good. And the board actually talks about the strategic plan every year, which is really great. They never did that before.
That's awesome. And I enjoyed those sessions. You could see the process of them coming together and aligning on your vision, which made it fun for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think it showed them too what was possible. I don't think they realized they had been so mired in what had happened, what the process was before, the way things were thought of, and like I said, the self-imposed capacity restraints that I think it was freeing for them to see, oh no, we really can achieve all these things.
Right. So what was the final result? What did you end up achieving for both you personally and the business?
Well, we were able to do the strategic plan within a 6-month time period, and then the execution roadmap, and we did all of that within 90 days. The board saw the value in doing this as a regular exercise, not just once every 10 years, which is what they had been doing, and that we do need to do it really on a yearly basis, assessment and moving 1 year ahead each time. And by doing this, by aligning the board with my vision, it allowed me to hire the needed personnel, gave me a scorecard to track my own progress. Our client base grew by 150%.
Wow.
We were able to double the various services we offer, and we have increased our gross income by 170%. So that was huge, huge for us. And we are now getting more and more away because of the execution of the strategic plan. We're getting more and more away from having to rely on sources of income that are not as secure. So that's huge for us in terms of sustainability as an agency.
And you mentioned in the past that that the growth that you're just describing also continued through COVID, which for many businesses, it had the exact opposite effect. You just happened to be able to be in a position to take advantage of additional growth.
Exactly. I mean, we were lucky that we were an area that a lot of people wanted to give to. During COVID, people were incredibly generous, but even here in 2021, where you can see there is a little bit of donor fatigue, we still are finding opportunities that were not there before, or just being able to leverage other opportunities. And so it's been great.
So what did this do for you personally?
Good question. I feel like it for me, it validated that I really was a capable individual in running this agency. This has been my first foray into running a nonprofit. There are some differences from running, being managing in a for-profit, but really I think my for-profit mindset is what really made a difference in terms of being able to move forward. So I really appreciated that, feeling secure and gaining some confidence in my skills as an executive director. And having that roadmap is helpful. During COVID, I think we had this discussion, you said a lot of people will just throw their strategic plan out the window. And I decided to make the decision to follow it. And it actually worked out for us. And it kind of kept us, particularly me, because it would have been really easy to get distracted by all the things happening in the community. But it kept me focused, and it gave me something to measure up my decisions up against during a really, really difficult time.
Awesome. So knowing what you know now, would you do anything differently, or what would you do differently?
Well, I don't think I would have waited 3 years to do this, just because I could see what a difference it made so quickly for us. So I definitely would have started the whole process sooner. That being said, I don't know if I was ready. I mean, sometimes things happen at the time that they should happen. And so maybe I had a lot of growing to do to get to that point as well. And I have to say that for me, it was very helpful that you are in our community, you understand our community, and you understand the needs and the way our community works. And I think that was helpful to me in particular, because our agency is so deeply ingrained in our local community.
I love the results you got. I liked working with you, of course, and the board. You know that we're particular with who we work with. What would you say to somebody that's considering working with us?
I'd say go for it. Go for it. First off, while you talk the language of strategic planning, if you're not familiar with all of that, you still make everything that you're teaching us very accessible and understandable. You do things on a timely basis. You help build up enthusiasm for the project, and you're very good at follow-up. You don't just throw it out there and then we don't hear anything for weeks on end. And so it was a very, very positive experience. And I think any agency, even if you're doing really well, any agency or business that wants to go to that next level will definitely benefit from using your services.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Heidi. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to the next thing that we can do to benefit your business.
Oh, definitely. You are always on our radar, Marianne, if we need something in terms of strategic planning. So we'll continue to work with you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marianne.